I remember one time sitting down with a young farmer who had been helped by his father for 10 years, and they were dividing off into two separate operations. And it was horrifying to me to hear the father say, "Well, now I'm going to compete with you." Who does that? Well, some farmers have a way of being that is not in line with what my value system is or what your value system is. So I want you to think about, what do you truly cherish and believe, and what is really, really important to you to convey to your other parties who are having a lot of impact and influence over your future well-being. But the best tool to manage risk and uncertainty is communication and conflict resolution that is safe and respectful. Where is it written in your egg handbook that conflict is a bad thing? Conflict brings clarity as long as you're attacking the issue, not the person. Conflict brings certainty when you create solutions and say, what do we all want here? Which is what we call common interest. Welcome to the Farm Family Harmony podcast. I'm Elaine Fraze, Farm Family Coach, here with another episode full of transition tips, tactics, and sometimes hard truths to get harmony on your farm. Hi there, folks. Welcome to the Farm Family Harmony podcast. It's still harvest season as I record this, but the date this is coming out is November 25th. 4 weeks till Christmas. Are you ready? I hate that question. Christmas comes whether we're ready or not, in quotation marks. And for me, Christmas is a celebration of Jesus' birth and a time for families and friends to gather together and celebrate that. And what I want to talk about today, just with you on my own, is how to take more control over your future, because I've just been coaching a couple of young 40-something farmers this morning, and it's just apparent to me that many farmers out there are feeling very disappointed. And I'm hoping that I can give you some practical tools in this short podcast today with just me to think about what your winter is going to be like, and what are you going to just keep avoiding and procrastinating on, or what are you going to do and say, you know what, this can't be this way any longer. Things need to shift, things need to change, and I'm going to take some actions, make some adjustments, and create some solutions. So in my mind's eye, I have listeners, and I want to give a shout out to all of you who've been very kind and encouraging to me this past fall, just telling me what the podcast means to you and how you can pass this on to other family members and make some practical steps to get more control of your future, to get certainty of timelines and agreements in place and clarity of expectations and things actually happening, which is what, as coaches, we really, really want to see happen. Excuse me while I take a drink of water. Where I want you to start is with you. Many times you've heard it said in many places, the only person you can change is you. So I want you to sit down, do some self-reflection and say, what is it that you truly need and want that you're currently not getting? And a young person, a rancher, told me recently, Elaine, I come from a family where we talk things out and create solutions. But this ranch that I married into, it's like ostriches in the sand. They are just not talking, and they've been avoiding a lot of things for a long time. So you get to choose if you're going to glean some new skills, and that's what our coaching program offers through one-to-one coaching or our membership site. Get you some language around, I'm just curious, Dad. What is really going on here? Because I feel like I'm being micromanaged, and I really can't understand why we can talk about operations, but we can't really talk about what is your plan for helping me become the main manager. And many young farmers, male and female, in their early 40s are really struggling with this. Another common theme is, why can't you just let go of control? Why is this so important to you? And so my question to that is, what is it that you need that you're not getting? If you're not getting management training, are there other places you could get that through peer networks, ranching for profit, or going to conferences, or finding other mentors in your neighborhood who would help you with some of that? Possibly your agrologist, possibly your lender or farm management specialist. And what is your own personal learning plan? So if you can't change your mom or dad, but you can change yourself, what is your learning plan for this winter? What are the skills that you need to keep moving the farm forward in the direction that you want to see happening so that you can have some control over your future? And, obviously there's things we can or cannot control, but we've got to figure out what we do have in our control. So self-awareness is a really good thing, and also figuring out what you need, what skills you're lacking that you need to maybe join some learning plan around this winter to be able to figure out how can you have more robust conversations with your parents who have a lot of power and control to get what you want for the future of your farm or your ranch. And this means that you're going to stop sticking your head in the sand, and you're going to start learning good um, positive conflict behavior. So coming from curiosity, reaching out, I'm just curious, Dad, can we sit down and have a meeting just to talk about my learning plan for how I can become more of a manager? And Dad, I really need to talk to you about your micromanaging. I also need to talk to you about the fact that I'm now in my early 40s and I don't own anything yet. I don't have equity in this farm. So embracing your tough conversations with good conflict language is really important. I'm just curious. Can we meet? This is what I want to talk about. Hey, Dad, just curious. What are you really afraid of? Because it seems like you have this fear of me being better than you as I expand this operation. And for some of you listening to this, you go, oh, yeah, Elaine, that's a thing. And I remember one time sitting down with a young farmer who had been helped by his father for 10 years, and they were dividing off into two separate operations. And it was horrifying to me to hear the father say, well, now I'm going to compete with you. Who does that? Well, some farmers have a way of being that is not in line with what my value system is or what your value system is. So I want you to think about, what do you truly cherish and believe, and what is really, really important to you to convey to your other parties who are having a lot of impact and influence over your future well-being. I also would encourage you to reach out to us and ask for the conflict dynamic profile. You can take a look at it in my shop at farmfamilycoach.com, because I need you to understand that reaching out, adapting, putting yourself in the other person's shoes to create perspective, and expressing your emotions and creating solution is all really positive conflict behavior. But if you're just going to sit back and get same old, nothing is going to change on your farm or your ranch this winter. You also need to know, young farmers, that you have options. You are not trapped in this place. Many other people would be more than willing to hire you for a good salary and good working conditions should you decide that you can no longer put up with procrastination and planning of the estate, or planning of the shifting and cascading of wealth and assets to you as the next generation keeps being put off. You just decide, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm going to make a different path. The other thing is, I really want you to stop accepting bad behavior, because again, the saying is, you get the behavior that you accept. And my other sadness in this conversation, talking about micromanaging dads, or dads particularly in farming, who don't want to let go of power control, is they usually have a spouse, and those spouses aren't happy either with the family dynamic and the disharmony that's going on, and the fighting and the machinery breakdowns that aren't necessary, and all the things that happen when people have distracted management, because so much of their emotional energy is being flown into these blow-ups and this drama, rather than saying, whoa, Let's have somebody help us co-facilitate this to get to the bottom of what is truly happening here. And why are we having these issues when the farm is in a good financial position, but unfortunately the founders are not in a good emotional conflict resolving kind of dynamic. So stop accepting bad behavior and decide that you are going to make changes going forward. And that might mean asking for help from an outside advisor, a confidant, or a facilitator to help you navigate some of these hard conversations. Because once you start talking about what your parents are actually afraid of or why there are conflicting visions between the spouses and they don't want the same things anymore, and that's causing a lot of internal conflict in the marriage that you may or may not know about. Once you start opening up all of these things that are happening, then you can start very carefully saying, let's talk about this first. Okay, we have some solutions here. Now let's talk about the next thing. And you approach it in a rational, strategic manner, calmly and respectfully with each other, because your goal is to have more control and certainty for your future. Because you're now in your 40s and you can't stay on quicksand anymore. You need a strong financial foundation for you to be able to leverage equity so that you can take on good debt to grow your business. And you also need to know that you have safety and security financially for your family. So there's a lot going on that isn't actually being resolved because people just putting their head down and ignoring the fact that things have to change. And when we talk about change, one of the most helpful tools that I've been given as a coach is from Michael Pantalon, where he says, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being really ready, how ready are you to let go of some of the equity, Dad? And if Dad says a 2 and you're at a 10 that you need this, then you know how big of a gap there is for what you're asking. So whenever you're trying to see if people are serious about making actual commitment to change and they use low numbers, then the next question is, well, why didn't you pick a lower number? Well, I would go lower. I'm not ever going to make anything written down and put it into agreements. And this is another comment that I heard lately of a father who refuses to put anything in writing. And that is like working with a stubborn ox. That is not acceptable, especially when that person is already into a new decade and aging. And so you can kind of tell maybe I'm a little bit fired up in this podcast because when I have two conversations very close together with young farmers that have very aligned kind of principles of things that need to be solved, I just want you to know as you listen to this that you may feel like you are alone. You are not. And I have these feelings cards on my desk here that were put together by a very creative person. And, it says for ages 3 and up. And I'm very much on the up part. But I am disappointed in having 3 or 4 decades of work with farm families where we're still feel like we're rolling a small ball up a very steep hill in trying to get farm families to understand the urgency of having these conversations and the urgency of getting agreements in place. This morning, I got a text from my very good friend that her husband has had 2 seizures and is in the hospital. Things can happen, folks. We know this to be true in the flash of an eye, a twinkling of an eye. But we still refuse to deal with reality that, oh, we'll do it after Christmas. No, it's the end of November now, and you need a plan for this winter to be sitting down to get solutions created for the transition of management on your farm, to give the next generation the learning tools that they need to become managers, for you to pull back and step back as the older farmer and spouse without stepping away, but to change your role and to not be so upset or fearful about your financial well-being when you can already assess that by having good meetings with financial planners and being very financial transparent with each other. So stop the bad behavior. Start talking with each other, start creating solutions, and start acting by putting things down on paper and into agreements. And here's the thing. Many farmers are also looking at end-of-year budgets and expenses of a tough harvest. The cattle people are happy they're finally making decent profits, but they're sad that they've also had to navigate drought. So there are always going to be in agriculture challenges that you have to manage the risk as best you can. But the best tool to manage risk and uncertainty is communication and conflict resolution that is safe and respectful. Where is it written in your ag handbook that conflict is a bad thing? Conflict brings clarity as long as you're attacking the issue, not the person. Conflict brings certainty when you create solutions and say, what do we all want here? Which is what we call common interest. I'm pretty sure that most of you listening to this would love a Christmas where everyone pitched in with a potluck dinner and said, you know what can I bring? Let's take the burden off one person and let's just all share food together and join together and not worry about a whole lot of fancy schmancy stuff, but let's just have the joy of being together. Oh, and those gifts and giving cards and all the other expectations. Where is it written that you have to do that? You can make a different plan for Christmas and how you show up with each other, but you can also anticipate the happiness of being together as a family if you've been managing the conflict and the tension and the dynamic of your family. And please, when you get together in December, do not at the table where you're supposed to be celebrating Christmas, do not say, oh, and let's start talking about your future, Mom and Dad. No, that's a separate meeting. That is something where you have an agenda, you get prepared for what's going to be talked about. And one of the best ways to do that, folks, is to write a letter. Dear Mom and Dad, it's the end of November, and I can't face another spring, summer, or fall like what we've just had. I've been back at this farm for 7 years now, and I need you to understand that I am not happy the way I'm feeling of the career that I left to come back and help you, and now am being pushed away, micromanaged, and not given any management clarity at all about my roles and responsibility, and no adherence to what my vision is for the growth of this business plan. So here's the deal. We are going to meet on December 26th at 1 o'clock after lunch, and probably not at the kitchen table at your house, Dad and Mom, but I think a better thing to do would be just to have it somewhere a little more neutral so that we can really focus on what we need to talk about. Oh, and by the way, the next time you jump in my pickup and we're shoulder to shoulder, I'll be planting seeds for this conversation. Funnily enough, the best times I could have decent conversations with my mom were at 100 miles an hour, not 100 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, 100 clicks an hour, where she's sitting beside me in the car and cannot escape. Because my mom spent a lot of time in the kitchen, in the garden, and not available a whole lot for sit down with a cup of tea kind of conversations. So you need to figure out, number one, what is it that you need and want for the future so that you feel like you have more power and control over your own destiny, and that as a young farmer, you actually know what the plan is to build your equity that will help you and your family and also the bigger farm picture as a whole. You got to figure that out. And then you have to decide that if you're not good at doing conflict right now, you're going to get better at it. And I invite you to just go to our YouTube channel and discuss the undiscussable and listen to other podcasts that I've been on where we talk about how to get to the table. It's really important. And then call a meeting where you can actually start preparing the other people, possibly with a letter, to get them sorted about what are the most important things for you to talk about. Because it's 2025. It's another winter ahead of you. And before you know it, it's going to be Christmas. and then it's going to be Valentine's, and then it's going to be Easter, and then it's going to be planting, and then it's going to be haying and fungiciding and crop protection, and then it's going to be harvest, and then it's going to be November 25th again. And a whole agricultural year will fly by before your eyes, and nothing has changed. Don't know if you can sense some of my frustration in this, because you just don't know, folks, what the next year is going to bring. And people need to pay attention. Yeah, there's some dead air space right now. Because when you're having hard conversations, you kind of have to let the silence do the heavy lifting so that other people can look in your eyes, say, wow, you're really upset about this. Yes, I am. And the reason I'm upset, Dad, is because you have capacity in this moment to make things better, and you're not. And I cannot deal with this uncertainty anymore. My family needs to know that they're taken care of, and that risks are going to be mitigated, and that we'll have a plan that we can see unfolding that gives everybody this clarity of expectations they need and certainty of how things will be cared for going into the future. But for some strange reason, you cannot find the time to do this. And time's another important thing for us to talk about. As young families, I know you're driving kids to hockey. I know you're driving kids to club. I know you're driving kids to 4-H. I know you're driving kids to music lessons, all the things. But here's the interesting thing from my generation compared to yours. My parents did not come to all my volleyball and basketball games. My husband's parents did not go to his baseball or hockey games, every one of them. But you do. And so the interesting thing is how you become very child-directed in the way you manage your time. And I know your children are important, but I'm challenging you. Where are you blocking an hour or 2 hours to take care of your marriage, just you as a couple, or an hour or 2 hours blocked on your Google Calendar or in your phone or your fancy thing on the wall? Where are you blocking time to create more certainty for the future of your business? And that's my encouragement in a very practical way, is if you need your wills to get done or to get updated, you pick up the phone, you make the call, you block the time. You need a meeting to find out when your dad is going to stop micromanaging or that you have other options and you're going to go and do something else. You block the time. Time is going to go by. And in Italy, their kitchen timers look like tomatoes, which in Italian is pomodoro. It's called the pomodoro technique. In 25 minutes, folks, even just half an hour, you can get a lot done to keep this process of transition moving. I've had a really full time, and I almost considered not publishing this episode because, as you could tell from my voice, I was getting a little bit emotional. And I guess that's because I really care about farm families. And one lovely woman wrote me and said, Helene, you actually really love farm families. Yes, I do. And the stories keep coming. And just a shout out to Annabelle in Scotland, who's been listening to us, and she attended one of Lydia Carpenter's seminars there recently. And so thank you, Annabelle, for listening. So this is a shout out to you. And I also just want to give a bouquet to all of you of my listeners who've been very faithful over the last 5 seasons. I just celebrated my 69th birthday in October, and I'm planning to keep doing podcasts and membership groups for quite a while yet, while I have the energy and the passion to still keep doing that. And that's why I got emotional in this podcast, is because, like you, I'm a farmer. And I can happily announce that I'm giving this bouquet again to myself. It was for my birthday, but it's also for the end of harvest, which happened officially yesterday, November 3rd. And so I'm just really thankful that you're here. So please take the time to share this wide and far with all of your friends and neighbors, and especially your family. And reach out to me on WhatsApp if you're across the pond somewhere in Scotland or in Australia or wherever you might be listening to this, or in the US and Canada. We really appreciate you as listeners. And we're going into now the season of winter soon, at the end of December, which is supposed to be planning month. So please don't let this slide by. I just heard from an old client who's now in his early 80s, and it was 10 years ago that I did the family meeting with them, and things just haven't switched as much as he would like to. And he said, Elaine, I can still hear your voice. And that's what you're listening to now. And that's why this podcast is so important to us at Farm Family Coach. So I hope you're well, stay well, and just keep taking the next step in this winter season. Talk to you again soon. And don't forget to stop and smell the roses. Bye for now.